Niles Weekly Register, October 19th, 1816. 1 year after Napoleon's exile to St. Helena. To Napoleon. When the motion was made, in the tribunate of France, to confer on you the title of Emperor, and for making that title hereditary in your family, Sanon, in opposing the motion, asked whether it was to grant the first consul a reward for his services in the cause of liberty, to offer to him the sacrifice of that liberty. Whether to confer this title on him was not to destroy his own work, and possibly himself, in the end. What, said he, is liberty then? Disclosed to man only that it may never be enjoyed, only to be snatched from his sight. We are told that this measure is necessary to consolidate the government. But, as all history shows, a government by one individual is not, in the smallest degree, a pledge of stability. The example of the United States of America has proved the practicability of uniting freedom with order, and the high destinies to which that nation appears to be called leave no doubt remaining as to the existence of these important truths. This is the season to recall these truths to your mind, but not for the purpose of insult or reproach, but for that of justifying the principles of liberty. As long as you fought under her banners, victory was your inseparable companion, and the gratitude of millions placed the laurel on your brow. From the moment that you associated your name with that of kings, you began to sink in the estimation of mankind. And when you, at last, allied yourself with them, mixing even your legions with theirs, the eye was unable to follow you in the rapidity of your fall. Afforded a chance of revival, even from a state of captivity and banishment, so deeply had you imbibed the infection that the empty title was resumed. Nay, when the voice of fate had apparently pronounced your eternal seclusion, you must still hand over your abdicated name to your child. Charge not liberty, therefore, with the injuries, the insults, the base opprobrium, the horrid denunciations, to which through the English press you have now been exposed. Charge not her with the natural offspring of cowardice in the hour of triumph over the brave. Charge them on your own desire to rule as a master, where you ought to have administered as a servant, and especially to your inexcusable desire to take rank amongst and to make common cause with those whom the French nation had commissioned you to go forth and destroy. While seated on your throne in gorgeous robes, surrounded by bowing coronets and mitres, the President of America, had he appeared in his simple attire, would have seemed to you a being founded by nature solely for the humblest offices of life. Let those who prize external grandeur, let those who desire to rule as masters of men, now behold you subdued by, your person actually in the hands of, and as is asserted, about to be imprisoned for life by that same power, which he, having the heart of freemen on his side, foiled in all its hostile attempts, and drove, in a manner which history will fearlessly describe, from the blazing capital and desolated shores of his country. Examples so striking, and illustrated by events so momentous, will not, let us hope, be lost upon you, if personal freedom be ever again to gladden your heart, and the admiration of your great deeds, which will always exist, be destined once more to restore you to power. Look at the people of America. No titles of count, duke, prince, or emperor dazzle their eyes. No splendid shows, no objects to gaze at, are necessary to remind them of their duties and of their past deeds. Contrast this people with the miserable people of France, who, while they stare at the column of Austerlitz, are paying contributions to pamper the soldiers of Austria, and upon the very bridge of Jena are trampled underfoot by the soldiers of Prussia, while their provinces are overrun by those Bavarians and Württembergers, whose sovereigns were elevated to thrones by the valor and blood of French armies under your command. In looking back upon mankind, on the interests of so great a part of whom your actions have had an influence, which class do you find to have been the most brave, the most sincere, the most faithful, the most magnanimous, and which the most cowardly, the most hollow, the most perfidious, the most cruel? Your fate, as it will excite a greater interest than any former event in the history of nations, so it will produce a greater and more lasting effect on men's minds. It will be the beacon, the ever-existing warning to every man who, having the cause of freedom consigned to his hands, shall in an evil hour be tempted to convert the valor he has inspired to the promoting of his private views of vain ambition. That, will it be said, was the rock on which Napoleon split. Napoleon, in whose name was comprised all that was skillful, generous, and brave. Were the friends of freedom as unfeeling as their adversaries, they would exult in your fall as the triumph of their principles. For who is it that is fallen? Not the child and champion of Jacobinism, as you had once the honor to be styled by the child and champion of corruption, not the darling hero of democracy, with liberty and equality, or death inscribed on his banners. No, but an emperor and king, the son-in-law of the House of Austria, the eulogist, the associate, the friend, the preserver, the restorer, the upholder, the creator of nobles and kings. It is not Napoleon driving the lazy monks from their cells and scattering to the winds the relics of superstition, but Napoleon crowned by the Holy Father, re-establishing in some degree bishops and priests and daily prostrating in his own person the interests of truth before the mummeries of the mass. It is not that Napoleon, the first consul, who in the year 1804, formally and specifically and officially charged the English government with the hiring of bands of assassins to take away his life, but Napoleon the Emperor, the son-in-law of the House of Austria, who, in 1815, calls that same English government the most generous of his enemies. Still, the friends of liberty cannot harden their hearts to feelings of exultation when they look back to your wonderful efforts in her cause. When they behold you rising up amongst the sons of democracy, marching forth against the privileged orders of Europe, leaving unsubdued not one single sovereign, ruling by divine right, bringing them all to your feet, enlarging the dominions of some, curtailing those of others, stripping these of their dignities, and bestowing new dignities on those, prescribing the bounds of their alliances, and giving their sons and their daughters in marriage. When the friends of liberty look back on these exploits, which have established forever the superiority of talent over insolent birth, which in dissipating slavish prejudices have laid the sure foundation of future freedom, all your errors are forgotten, and whether to exile or to death, you will be followed by the admiration and gratitude of every brave and every free man in every nation in the world.